This is Patrick from Nite, and you are listening to the Dan Chan Show.
I'm joined by Van and Patrick from San Fran, Black and Heavy Metalers Night. How are you doing this afternoon, guys? This afternoon for you, but evening for me. How are you doing?
Great.
All good, man.
Awesome. So how's obviously we've got January out the way, obviously the worst month of the year. How's the rest, how's the year started for you? Obviously you released an awesome single, Crow Fear the Night, in mid-January. How's the response been to that, and how's the year started for you? Van,
year's been great.
Oh, Patrick, you go for it.
I'll go first. Sorry. Year has been great so far. The single and the video were released on January 13th, and I have to say the response has been phenomenal, both from the music community at large, the heavy metal press, and our fans that have really come through with like the most streams and video views that we've ever had. So pretty stellar stuff so far. So we couldn't be happier.
I think the tracks really blow me away. And to be honest with you, I'm a Nite virgin, right? This track has caught my attention, and I'll tell you why. And this is why I think it caught my attention. Obviously, I know the guys from Season of Mist and everything, but I think your sound is so much like a band that I really like, and the band Tribulation. Do you know Tribulation?
Yeah,
I love that band. I love what they do with their vocals and their melody. Have you been told that before?
yeah, and yeah, we talked about this before at every opportunity because Tribulation were responsible for the birthing of this band. For me, like when I first started doing some demos and stuff before I met Patrick and everybody else, it was right after the Children of the Night came out, and I don't know, I was listening to it, I was so into it and stuff, and it kind of reminded me of Killer's era Maiden with blackened vocals, and I was like, this is so cool. Why hasn't anybody done it before?
Very
and
much so.
This is so now. This is so 2017. It was back then.
Yeah.
Anyway. And I was like, you know what? Like I love Killers. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love Killers. But like my favorite albums are, Somewhere in Time, Parsley, Serpent Sun. And I was like, what if I try to do some demos like with that? Like do a blackened voice over my favorite era of Maiden, and that's what happens. And that's where it all comes. Of course. 8 years down the line, things are very different. We are an entity now. I mean, the band has its own voice, and you can tell that there's something there, but of course, it's a very different beast now.
It's awesome. There's also a bit of Ultimas in there as well. You know the band Ultimas, David Vincent's band? I can hear a bit of that in there, and the galloping guitars and everything. It's just really attractive to listen to. Now, with regards to your new album, the follow-up to 2022's Voices of the Coronian Moon, this is going to be released on the 14th of March under the brilliant Season of Mist, as I mentioned. It's called Cult of the Serpent Sun. How excited are you guys to be getting this out? Because apparently you only finished it late last year, so it's still quite fresh.
It is, and we've talked about this a bunch in interviews and within the band's ranks, how we only release albums in March. Right. And thus far, only released albums during pandemics. So I'm not saying that there's going to be a pandemic coming this March, but it would definitely be it would be on key for us to have another pandemic record. But yeah, the timing honestly worked out great. We work really closely with Season of Mist. As you mentioned, they're an amazing label, great people. They've been supportive for us, and so we worked really hard with them to sort of target the best release date for us, and also for them to be able to support it and promote the album as best they could. So yeah, we've been sitting on a lot of these songs for a little while, and we're just really happy to have them see the light of day and really get them out there to the people, and then also be able to play them live. That's our next goal.
Of course. Now, can you give us a little insight as to how the record was written and recorded, and if it differed from the previous two?
The change here was that we could actually be in the same room because in the previous albums, the first album was kind of like started from demos that I did before I met with the guys, and we changed them, of course, but it was mostly like from those first demos. And second album, we did it in a complete madness of the pandemic anyway. And Patrick, I mean, I would go in the studio and I would set up mics, and then Patrick would go in by himself and like press rec on the laptop, and I would go then pick up. You know, it was crazy. So we couldn't practice, we couldn't play the songs. So the biggest things for with this album for us in general is that we have toured a lot. We have you know, we've been to all these places. We have played with all these different bands, and all these different bands in the scene have worn off on us. What's the right expression? Like we are like we are part of the scene now. While back then we were kind of like starting up. We hadn't played any shows, and you know, when we did the second album, I think we've done 6 shows or something.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, the fact that we got to actually play these songs in the studio as a unit before we got the record was great. And we made changes. We made, of course, tempo changes and like part changes. It was so this album feels way more way closer to what we actually sound live than any of the other ones.
And that's important, isn't it? Because these days, a lot of people, I mean, obviously, I'm surprised that over COVID, you didn't record that previous album like remotely, like a lot of people are doing now. You know, I mean, it's quite fresh that you actually get into a room and write together in that format.
Yeah, I mean, we've all, the majority of the band has come from sort of like the, you know, DIY heavy metal, hardcore, like punk rock.
Yeah.
Where you just get in a room and you bash out tunes and sort of let it sort itself out. I would say this band, Nite in particular, is much more focused, and we come in much more prepared because Van does a lot of demoing.
Yeah,
I've never worked with another artist that demos as much as Van. It is amazing, impressive, and also refreshing. I think for a lot of musicians like myself that are the rhythm section, it's a little bit difficult to be faced with a riff in the room where the guitarist is really excited, like, check this riff out. It's in like, you know, 16/9 and there's 20 changes, and can you learn it real quick and just play it? I'm like, yeah, no, man. But like, let me hear the track, let me learn it, let me rehearse it a few times and come prepared. So I think, you know, what Van has done with the demos has helped to accelerate the growth of the band and the progress of the band beyond what I think we could have done if we were just, you know, bashing it out in the room. But I will say having that access to a rehearsal space and a studio space where we can all get together and play, to Van's point, has really changed the sound of the band and the aesthetic for sure.
Awesome. Now, lyrically, Van, is that your department?
Not we do all write lyrics. I mean, I do tend to write more lyrics just because I demo the vocals. So many of the lyrics stay there from the demos till the end, but I'm not a native speaker, so I say stupid things all the time. So the guys, you know, help me out with those things. So yeah.
So what's the vibe then? You know, esoteric, yes. Suns, moons, and stars, yes. So what's the themes behind your music?
I mean, the way that I see it is each album has its distinct sort of theme. They're not concept albums, but we come in with kind of like a point of view that helps us to sort of write to something. So,
yeah,
you know, for instance, like the second album, Voices of the Crony Moon, we very decidedly were like, this is our space record. Everything is from the perspective of outer space, some other dimension, you know. And what it helps to do, I think, is really frame how the songs feel, not only lyrically, but how they actually, you know, feel like cosmic, and like, you know, they actually like have kind of an overall vibe. And with the new record called The Serpent Sun, you know, we definitely wanted to bring it back to earth. A lot of the lyrical themes and the musical themes, I think, are sort of referring to ancient cults and sort of like ancient, you know, kind of underground evil that's always existed in the world. And then we sort of write again from that perspective, like, how does that sound? How does that feel? How does that look? And that helps really kind of define where the album goes.
Do you tend to read stuff to get the influences for lyrics? Because obviously when I speak to Scandinavian metal bands, for example, they take wild walks in the atmosphere, in the woods and everything. But I can't imagine in, you know, the very liberal San Francisco, you go for a walk down, you know, the docks or whatever, and get a vibe for, you know, your kind of music. Where does it come from? Films, TV, books?
Yeah, I think we all hear, but for me personally, it's watching science fiction movies. reading comic books and playing video games. So these are the things. But it's usually, I would be watching something and then I have a little black book that something comes to me, like Death Eternal, and I would write it down. And then when I'm trying to find lyrics, I would just go through that little book and then see the little notes that I've made through the year.
Mm-hmm.
And that, yeah. And sometimes, I just rip off things that,
Sure.
from something, but that thing always becomes something else. Like,
Okay. Do you tend to do that with regards to lyrics? Do you write things down and think I'll save that for a rainy day?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, because as Van said, like he'll write the core structure of the song because he has to sing this shit over these really complicated guitar lines. So like if I was feeding him lyrics, they would be completely different. So what we'll do is we'll take Van's sort of like structure of a song or idea or like placement and think about that, that cadence and that pacing. And then I'll help him with sort of like this word, might really sound great here, or this phrase might really work well to kind of like reinforce this concept that we're trying to work with the song. And as Van mentioned, sometimes he'll bring some nonsensical Greek mumbo jumbo to the table, and our American ears will have to sort of filter that and make it
I
make a
love
little
that.
bit more sense. Yeah,
Uh,
but
uh,
it's great. I mean, that collaborative process, though, honestly, like, will make the songs and the albums really feel like they come from us and they're not just a product of, one person's vision or this idea is a demo and then this is how it ends up in the album. They change and they morph and grow and evolve so much from kind of the inception to where they end up on the record.
Get you. Now, if you don't mind, we'll do a bit of history now because I want to know more about how you guys got together. Obviously, we've got Van. Van is Greek, lived in London, lived in Germany, now lives in San Francisco. Patrick, you're from San Francisco as a native. The other two guys, I'm not sure because they're not here to answer back for themselves. How did the band get together? How did you find each other? And tell me from then until now.
Yeah, I was what I was saying earlier when I started doing these demos back in 2017. I used to live in LA, and I tried to find people to play that music. I was in a different band at the time. Anyway, long story short, I tried to put this thing with like many different people, and then somehow the Lords of Metal like graced me with the presence of these dudes, and yeah, I had a friend from Boston who I met in Germany, and I was in a band with him there, and he was friends with our first bass player and Brian, and then Brian was friends with Pat, and we all met, and then we met Scott through Pat was friends with Scott through a different friend, and then
Yeah.
and then yeah, it was all through friends of friends anyway, but that wasn't the first lineup. I can tell you that, like, because
Sure.
I had to try a lot of different people to find people that I can actually connect with and get this off the ground.
Hmm. So obviously, San Francisco is the mecca for a certain metal genre, as we all know, right? What's the scene like today for you guys? What's the heavy metal scene as opposed to the thrash Bay Area thing? What's it like?
I mean, it's funny because you think about the thrash metal scene here, and it's kind of ancient history, right? That's
Yeah, of
like
course.
35
Yeah, no.
years ago. And some of those big names are still around. And we've had the pleasure of meeting and interacting with a lot of those kind of original OG Bay Area thrash metal people, like the Gary Holtz and people of that ilk. Amazing bands, amazing people.
Yeah.
Really laid the foundation, I think, for heavy metal in San Francisco. We see ourselves sort of as a continuation of that story in that, what the Bay Area thrash metal scene was a bunch of kids, I mean, high school kids that
Mm,
like heard a certain kind of music that they wanted to see in the world, and they weren't
mm,
seeing it in their local scene. They
yeah.
loved new wave of British heavy metal. They loved all these singles that these British bands and these European bands were releasing, and they were like, why doesn't that exist here in the Bay Area of California? So they made that happen. Same with
Mm,
us. We saw this certain type of music that we identify with as contemporary heavy metal, and not a lot of bands were doing that here. There's a big kind of like Oakland, kind of like dark death metal crust punk scene that still sort of thrives is gurgling in the underground. And then San Francisco, is more challenging. In the past 20 years, it's changed so drastically. The scene kind of grows and shrinks as the economy does. It's a boom and bust town, as I'm sure you've heard. And I think what's great about being here is that, as Van mentioned, the band came together because we were all just knew of each other and we're friends of friends. The scene here, for being a major, metropolitan area in the US, is really small.
Really?
Once you're here for a decade or more, if you've sort of put your time in and you've established roots here, you get to know everybody.
Right.
It's small where you can go to a show and you can guarantee you're going to pretty much know everyone in the crowd, which I personally love. I think that's really fucking cool.
Yeah.
It's not sort of like a New York, or like maybe Berlin, or like somewhere where you kind of be a little bit like nameless and faceless.
Yeah.
And sort of, but it's kind of, and again, maybe that's just for me being here for over 20 years, but like, it really feels small, and the scene is very supportive, and the bills are great because they're very diverse.
Yeah.
Have like a kind of like traditional thrash metal band playing with a death metal band playing with a goth band, and then like it just works because everybody's like super supportive and just really like coming out for the scene.
That's very cool. That's really cool. Now, talking of live, what's going on with you guys? What's coming up? Let's start off with the fact that I'm obviously a Nite version, never seen you live. What's the show like for you guys?
What's it so like for well, I don't know. We try to put the best song so we can. It's definitely packed and very high energy, and we're like one step before passing out always, which is great. Yeah, we give it our all. I mean, right now it depends on the slot. Like I don't think, have we ever played more than 45 minutes, Pat? I don't remember. Did we do an hour at the record release show? I don't know.
Maybe 50 minutes.
Like
yeah,
our show is usually 45 minutes. Yeah, that's where we are. And yeah, the new show that we're working on now is of course gonna feature a few songs from the new album, and we're trying to keep it like kind of level, just between me and you. We tend to do the same songs over and over again. So meaning that we don't really try it, but it happens. Like we have our galloping song, like in every album, and then we have our dark song in every album, and our ballad on every album. So it depends on which ones we want to mix, kind of. So we cannot play all the gallop songs because we will be galloping for the half the show. So it comes and goes. Like just to give you an idea for people who listen, who actually know the songs a little bit better, like The Way and Acheron and the Last Blade from the new album are all gallop songs, and we're gonna choose one of those.
What about the Trident? That's my favorite. I fucking love that. I love that riff, man. I love that song.
We love that too, especially with Pat. This is Pat's favorite song, right?
What's interesting about what you say about the Trident and what Van's explaining about our live set is that we do have to sort of like road test these a bit and try out different versions of the set. And I think what we've come away with is recognizing what the crowd responds to. And the Trident's a perfect example of a song that we placed last on the album. We didn't release it as a single. We had a video come out later in the album cycle, but we kind of I don't want to say it was an afterthought, but it was only once we played that song live and saw the crowd's reaction and people singing along.
Yeah.
Sing to the chorus that we were like, oh shit, this song fucking landed. Like people get it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like I think for us, we're always just trying to pay attention to that crowd interaction. And that thing that people come up to us, after the set and say, I love that last song. What was it? So like, that's really what we're trying to do is, I mean, the whole point of playing live is you want to bring the best version of your band,
of course,
to the audience. And if they're wanting to hear that song, that's what you
got to give it to them. Now, obviously, it's going to be harder, isn't it? The more songs you release, the harder the set. If you're only playing 40 minutes, 45 minutes. So you've got that problem next. But what shows have you got coming up to back this album up? What's the prognosis for gigs coming up and further afield? What's the situation?
Then we cannot say anything right now. We haven't really cleared anything, but we do have a lot of plans for this coming year. But we're trying to get the green light from our bookers to say like, okay, we can announce this, but unfortunately we can't. What we can say is that we've toured the West Coast and like up to Texas and back a few times so far, but we need to go to places that we haven't been, which is East Coast, and we need to come to Europe. And we have also some invitations from South America that we have to, like, we
Yeah,
want to honor,
of
and
course.
we want to
Great
get there.
scene.
So
Fantastic scene down there.
so yeah, a lot in the future plans, but we cannot really say anything else
Sure.
right now.
And you tell me off camera. Don't worry about that. I want the secrets.
There will be an album release show locally too in the Bay Area.
Right, yeah.
We always do an album release show, and again, it's like, the best lineup and the most diverse lineup we can think of with our friends at one of our favorite venues. So that will be announced shortly. It all will be announced.
Nice, I like it. And obviously, Season of Mist, right? I've got to go back to those guys. So I love them. How did that deal come about for you guys?
I think I have to take that one, but
go for it. Yeah.
So yeah, funny thing. That's a fun story. Like I knew the guys from the past because I am working as a music producer for like 25 years, I guess, something like that. So I did work with them in the past doing albums for other bands. So I had I've met Michael and stuff in the past. So I sent them the first album before we put it out, like back in 2019 or something, and they turned it down, like initially. And then I was like, okay, sure. I mean, which is understandable. Like you don't want to sign that nobody band that hasn't done anything. You don't know if the band is gonna stay together for a year. So and then a couple of years later, right before the pandemic, right, Michael sent us a text and said like, hey guys, like what are your plans, blah, blah, blah. And I told him like, don't you remember that we talked about the first album? Like, we did? That was stupid. No, I didn't sign you then. So yeah, that was Michael just so I think what we did with the first album, and he liked it, and he asked us to like join. I'm pretty sure that certain people played a role, like Victor from Dimu Eborgir played a role, and then Christian Larsson also, who does Hills Heroes, also played a role, I think, and Mattia Alania that runs Sentient Ruin also played a role. None of them wanna say that they did, but I know that they all did play a role in that. So yeah, very cool. Grateful for all these people.
Very cool, and what a label they are. So let me go back to this then. So you've got the awesome label. You do some great shows. What do you prefer? Now, you obviously both have different answers. Do you prefer studio or stage?
I'll go here. I love both. I used to hate the studio. I've really come around to it as a drummer to really embrace
I'm a drummer as well. I hate the studio. I love live.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I hate click tracks, right? I just hate being locked in like that.
Okay. So great point. I used to be you. I used to hate the click track. I thought I was always fighting it. I have come to embrace the click and the studio environment because I think it was a mental shift. It was like, it went from like this is the definitive version of the song that's going to be like imprinted into history. No, dude, fuck that. It's one take of a song that you played. It's a documentation. Like that's just the one way you played the song once, and you're going to play it a million more times, and it's going to change and evolve, and it's going to be different.
Yeah.
Now that said, I've come to embrace the studio, but I still love performing live because you get to be a different person.
Totally.
In the best way possible, and I mean that in the most theatrical sense. And we talk about this a lot in the band as well. We're people. We're Van and we're Patrick in everyday life, but on stage you get to literally be this different person. I
totally agree, man. I totally agree.
And I, coming from sort of like the thrash metal, like DIY hardcore punk scene, there was sort of, I think in my youth, a rejection of that, of like, oh no, it's jeans and t-shirts and it's like you have to be yourself. And I didn't understand, I didn't understand the corpse paint. I didn't understand the Kiss, like, why would you dress up? And now I totally get it. You're putting on a show. Somebody paid money.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Give them a show. Give them
right.
version, even if you're an underground band like we are, we try to give people the biggest version of who we are, whether that's with stage props, with lighting, with backdrops, whatever we're wearing on stage, and just becoming this like entity that doesn't exist in the real world.
No, it should be.
And I love that. I embrace it.
That's amazing. Van, what do you think? Are you going to say studio? You're going to say studio. You're a studio.
I mean, look, I live in the studio. Like, this is me, like my whole life. Like, ever since I was 14 and I started doing this thing, like this studio is my home. Like, it doesn't, like, I do that 24/7.
So you should say stage then.
Yeah, that is why I'm doing it. That's why I'm in the I live in the studio so that I can get on stage. Yeah, stage is like a million times more fun than the studio. This is what it's all about. Like, this is there's no question about it for me.
Love that. Right, we've got some fun questions before we end. All right, can you cope with some fun questions? Here we go. Okay. Now, you're going to be quick with these answers with regards to this two of you. So one of you's got to answer and then pass it over because I want both your opinions. So who would be on your personal Mount Rushmore of rock and metal? It doesn't have to be a band. It can just be your influences, four faces that have crafted you where you are now.
Oh, I'm going to say just because it's top of mind.
You go first. Go on.
Drummers right now, I am so into, and this has influenced me my whole life. Vinny Colaiuta, and that's a really weird answer from a heavy metal musician, right? Because he's kind of, he played it. I mean, he was in Megadeth, but there's something about just watching a really inspiring drummer who you're never going to be as good as, and it just lights a fire under my ass. I'm like, I need to rehearse.
Okay, Patrick, I'm going to stop you. I've got to get through 7 more names now, so you got to go 3 more, and then we'll pass to Van. So go on, let's go.
I get 3 more.
Yeah, it's Mount Rushmore, man. You're American. All faces on that.
Cozy Powell, John Bonham, Vinny Appice.
He's got all drummers.
I'm a drummer.
He's got all drummers. I love that. Right.
Van, by extension, it's their bands. It's their bands that they play into.
Okay, fair enough. Van, you've had some time.
All right. So Steve Harris.
Okay.
James Hetfield.
Yeah, come on.
2 more, huh? Heavy metal.
My guys weren't
God.
metal.
I can edit this, don't worry.
Okay, so I said Steve Harris, James Hetfield, John Oliva.
Okay.
Yes.
And Patrick Crawford. Let's move on.
Tony Iommi. I'm sorry.
Okay, good. Okay. I like it. I like some Brits in there. I love that. Okay, so what's the weirdest music we wouldn't expect to find in your playlist, Spotify, on whatever collection you've got? What's something that we wouldn't expect from you that you listen to? There's no such thing as guilty pleasures, right? There's no guilty pleasures.
No, I don't believe in guilty pleasures at all. No. I love country music. And I love old school hip hop and rap, and I love like singer songwriter like crooners like Scott Walker.
I like
Scott Walker.
Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. Like that. Van, go on.
It is pretty weird. Progressive house music.
Okay, I thought you said progressive bouzouki music or something.
No Greek music for me. No, thank you for that. But progressive house music, IDM. I think that's it. These are the 2 weirdest things that I listen to.
Who is the next Metallica that could be on that stage in a few years' time? When Metallica retired, who we're going to be watching in stadiums?
Pat, go first.
Well, I mean, it's hard because you want to say a band like Ghost, but they're kind of already at that level playing.
They are. I mean, but I think, but to be fair, I asked this question a few weeks ago to someone else, and they said that Ghost, and you know what? They probably will be in a few years' time still doing that. So
I think they will. The trajectory that Ghost is on is, I'm going to say they're the next Metallica. Funny side story, really quickly. Cool. I saw Ghost on his first U.S. tour before anything was even released.
Yeah.
They played at Bottom of the Hill in San Francisco, 150 room capacity, a room that Van and I have played many times now as Nite. And I literally bumped into James Hetfield. Like, I turned a corner, I was like leaving, and I ran into James. And I'm like, hop ahead, and he's like, "All right, dude." But like that shit is like mind blowing to me that I got to see that band in
Oh,
that
man.
small venue, and I
Yeah.
will always.
So, okay, I love this question. What's your most unpopular musical opinion?
Yeah, no, I cannot say mine. The guys have forbidden.
No, now you have
No,
to. You
Come
have
on,
no,
you said it
no,
I'm
now.
not.
and I know
No.
exactly what Van's going to say, and if you don't say it, I'm going to say it because I know what
Patrick,
it is.
you say for Van. You say
I'm
Vans.
going to answer for Van. The band that two members of his band literally have tattooed on their bodies. Judas Priest, the best heavy metal band in all of history.
Sure.
Van thinks not only are overrated, but he says they're not a good band.
Fair enough.
I
Okay.
mean,
Well, okay. Yeah, go
yeah.
on. Back it up.
No,
Back
no,
it
no,
up,
no. I
Van.
mean, they definitely have amazing albums, right? That I love, but yeah, I think I'm a little bit over it. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah, no,
sorry, everyone.
no,
That's
okay.
right.
You can be forgiven for that. Patrick, what's yours then? Let's see if we can agree.
I don't know do I have an unpopular musical opinion?
Everyone has, mate. Come on.
I do. Okay. I think by the same token, I think that a lot of Iron Maiden is overrated. Although I love Steve
It's like
Harris.
juggling British bands here.
But well, this is well, I mean, there are huge influences on us, and this
I
is why
know.
I think we take a lot of the foundations of our sound. But to me, it's the first two Maiden albums. I just like that, and I know Van has differing opinions, so maybe that's just an inner band
Sure.
unpopular opinion.
That's cool. That's cool. Okay, here's the next question. And I think you might live in one of these places, but if there was a total mecca to rock and metal, where would it be? If people if everyone came for pilgrimage, where would it be?
Pilgrimage. I mean, shit. For me, it's fucking probably Birmingham.
Yeah, that's
all the heavy metal
that's a popular answer. Van,
come from there. Like it really is. Like that's
yeah.
That for me, that's heavy metal mecca for me for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's when I was living in Europe, I thought that Bay Area is that, but it's not exactly that. It was, but there's nothing like that left. It's like they're like robot cars and robot.
I know. I was in one last week.
So,
I was in a robot car in LA last week, driving with no driver. It was the strangest shit in the world,
Yeah.
Very weird.
So
Very weird.
yeah, to me also like London was a big deal. Like going there, we know where like Hendrix was, and where like Maiden played and all that stuff. Like it was a very historical moment for me when I first went there.
What this one for metal and rock, US or UK?
There's no question there. There's no.
Okay, I'm going to open it a bit wider for you guys. US or Europe?
Yeah, that's even better, because you added Germany to the.
Just in case you're on the fence.
It's definitely
Europe know what your
for
answers
me.
are.
Definitely Europe.
It's Europe. It's Europe. When I think of for me, like when I think of where all the influences come from, for my drumming, for my musical history, for what inspires me as a musician. But it's challenging. I mean, I think of it in a larger context too, right? Like a lot of those, especially British bands, were influenced by American blues musicians. So like for me, a lot of it comes back to the blues and early like jazz, and like that to me like is where that's the foundations of what really kind of comes as heavy metal and hard rock. But yeah, UK and Europe.
Okay, sure. Here we go. A couple of quick fire ones. If aliens would come to Earth, who would speak on behalf of humanity?
Bjork.
Yes, 100%. 100% agree.
That's the first time, and I can 100% agree with you. Okay, death row meal. And you live in California.
I'm going to answer Van.
You're going to answer each other's.
Is steak salad with a side
of Def Leppard and
chest.
Okay, Van, what's Patrick's?
I don't know, Patrick. It's some weird stuff sometimes, but I think it's a salad nowadays, right? You like
salad?
I think it's salad.
heavy metal salad eaters.
It's your last fucking meal, and you're having greens. What's the matter with you?
But if there's a giant steak on top of it, then that's what you can both worlds.
Okay, here we go. This is controversial. I want quick answers. Heaviest riff of all time, the ultimate stink face.
Black Sabbath by Black Sabbath on the album Black Sabbath.
Okay. Yeah. Van?
No question.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, I think it's Megadeth. I think it's High Speed Dirt by Megadeth.
Ooh.
Okay. Interesting. Never had that before. Okay. If your friends were to give you an award, what would the award be for? You can answer for each other.
Like if we were getting an award for something, you mean?
Yeah. Well, if your friends were giving you an award, what would the award be for? So Van, you give Patrick an award for something. Patrick, you give Van an award for something.
Van gets most songs demoed by a human ever in existence. 100%.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Van, what do you got, Van?
It's a very good thing. It's a good award.
And then Pat is like most items fit in a van possible. Like...
As a drummer, drummers are good at Tetris when it comes to vehicles and drums.
Exactly.
We know every angle and everything, mate. We know everything. Whether you've got a soft case, a hard case, we know everything. Okay, finally, what track should I play from the next? Well, what track should I play next from you guys and why? It can't be from the new album because I've not got that yet. But what can I play? I've already played Crow. So,
all right.
What do you want to play next?
I think you should play the Trident.
Yeah.
Yes. I was going to do it anyway.
Love it.
Because everyone loves it.
Everyone loves it. I mean, that's the reaction we've gotten to that song and exactly what you said. We were like, that's my favorite song. First answer. And something is connecting with people on that song.
That's coming up next. Now, finally, what's the most used emoji in your phone?
The pride cross.
Mine is the it's the knock emoji, but that one, yeah. But I use it for like raised fists.
That revolution thing. Yeah. What's yours, Patrick?
I use the cross swords a lot.
Yeah, like that. Just
overused heavy metal.
Love it. Listen, guys, Van, Patrick from Nite, thanks so much for a fascinating chat. Loved it so much. Good luck with the new album. I'll be playing loads of tracks from it, and good luck with the rest of the year.
Thanks so much, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.